What up, world? Happy Sunday. Welcome to another jam-packed edition of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the cloudy and spring-like confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast out not only here on YouTube, but you can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, and as well as on Podbean. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to take your spouse out, have a great time with some friends, then look no further than the number one leading ticket seller and reseller in the world, StubHub. Number one seller in the world for live events, tickets, shows, and concerts, StubHub. All right, guys, happy to be with you. This is episode 124. This episode is going to be players under the most pressure going into the 2025 season. The next episode, which will be 125, will be an episode recapping all of the NFL OTA news, contract situations, things like that. So I'll have another episode for that. But this episode is primarily going to be players under pressure going into the 2025 season. So we're definitely going to have a lot of things to touch over with that. Quarterback play, injuries. Also, is cjstroud healthy? And what's going on with Anthony Richardson in Indy? A lot to touch on, too, in this episode. But before we get started, I want to definitely make sure we give a shout out to one of our friends of the show. If you guys know, I'm a very avid gamer. I've been a very big PlayStation fan since 1996. So I would implore you to definitely, if you are a PlayStation fan like myself, I would implore you to check the description box. There's a link in this video that will be for the PlayStation Days of Play. Now, it started May 25th. It does conclude on June 25th, 2025. There are a lot of sales, a lot of links in there for a lot of purchases that I think I'll definitely be making. I would implore you as well. So definitely check it out within the description. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. All right, guys. So going into this episode, like I said, this episode is going to be players under the most pressure going into the 2025 season. I took a little time to just sit and kind of scour the league and think about guys who kind of under the fire, pretty much, in the frying pan, going into the season, and what difficulties may arise, what challenges may arise for them. So I kind of took my time with this one. I wanted to start, though, with some injury news before we go into the players under the most pressure. First of all, we got CJ Stroud out in Houston, who is dealing with a weird shoulder injury, apparently a shoulder soreness. Head coach D'Amico Ryan states that there's nothing to be worried about. That is just more or less a precautionary measure for shutting him down. It's spring OTAs. There's no need to really have him ramp it up right now, which is kind of weird because that means to me, logically thinking, maybe at some point during the offseason he was, overusing his arm, throwing a little too much, a little too much velocity, which put him in a situation where, shit's kind of tight now. It could be elbow tendonitis, could be shoulder tendonitis, one of the two. However it may be, he's out until training camp. He's not going to be playing. I do think that this is something to be concerned about a bit. You don't have to be worried right now because it's June. No football games are being played yet. The season's not even starting yet. However, if by July, August, you're starting to hear like, hey, there's still some shoulder soreness and they're still taking precautionary measures, or they're slowly ramping him up, then that just lets us know that the injury is a little bit more severe than what they are alluding to. But I would definitely keep you guys posted on that. Some more to come from that. But yeah, he's definitely going to be out until training camp. Like Anthony Richardson, which I guess I'll start with him going into the players under the most pressure going into the 2025 season. First of all, tough blow for Anthony Richardson to suffer that shoulder injury, which pretty much would have him not participate in the mini camps not only next week, but essentially head coach Shane Steichen stated he will not be a participant until some point in training camp. Not great news when you're in the middle of a quarterback battle. Not great news when you're a guy that's trying to, earn your keep in the NFL, stake your claim and plant that post as a starting quarterback. He's just in a situation now where he's going to have to figure out that it may be best for him to, sit down for a while and try to, learn a little bit, because obviously he's not going to be able to throw the ball. And Daniel Jones, I have no faith that Daniel Jones will be able to run that offense thoroughly. He's an efficient quarterback, yes, but we all know Daniel Jones makes dumbass decisions, and Shane Steichen's offense that won't be tolerated long. So Anthony Richardson is definitely going to get another shot to definitely win his job. It just sucks right now that he's, injured and not going to have that opportunity to really win it. But I would also, again, their situation on a scale of 1 to 10, because that's how I'm going to do it, just to let you know, we're going to gauge it, 10 being the worst, 1 being the least. I would put the Colts quarterback situation at a 9 right now. Both guys are under fire and have legit can they be the guy vibe questions. Clearly Daniel Jones is going to get more reps right now, obviously. But I honestly believe this is Anthony Richardson's position to lose. If he does not play well or he doesn't really come back well off the injury, then, the Colts will be looking for a quarterback next year because I have no faith in Daniel Jones whatsoever to run an NFL offense to an efficient level. I know he got to a playoff game in 2022. A lot of that was Saquon and the defensive play. Obviously, they had that playoff win in Minnesota that year, and then got boat raced in Philadelphia 38-9 the following week. So I have no faith in Daniel Jones. And like I said, I would have to put their situation right now as a 9 as far as pressure. Next, we're going to go to Justin Herbert. I love Justin Herbert. I like, quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers. I like him a lot. I think he's an elite quarterback. The only problem is, it still seems like there's something lacking. He had a very good year last year. Played very well, got to the playoffs, which, let's be honest, no one was really expecting the Chargers to get to the playoffs, and they played very admirably. Jim Harbaugh coached that team up pretty well. The thing is, though, it seems like the coach is trying to will him to be greater than what he feels he may be. And I think that could be potentially a problem because, let's be honest, if you don't feel that, when you got your coach saying that he's waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to make you a Hall of Famer, and for whatever reason, you just don't seem to have that energy. And I'm not saying that he does. I mean, like, if you really pay attention, this guy's tough. He plays through injury. He's a leader. He commands the huddle. He does all the things necessary. But there's something clearly lacking. I know a lot of people easily say, oh, it's the playoff losses. I'm not even attacking him for that. I don't give a damn. We all know there's been a ton of good quarterbacks that have played for shitty franchises that did not win in the playoffs, that didn't get far in the postseason. So I'm not going to use that as a straw man argument to really attack Justin Herbert. I'm strictly saying I think maybe he doesn't feel he could be as good as his coach thinks he can be. He could be good enough to get you to the playoffs, maybe contend a little bit, but I don't know about the Hall of Fame thing. I think that's kind of Jim Harbaugh trying to project that onto him. But we'll see. I mean, they have a good team this year. They should be very much in the mix for a lot of different things, especially a playoff spot in the AFC. I doubt they'll win a division because the Chiefs have had a stranglehold on that damn AFC West for 10 years now. I think that they're having potentially either the second or longest streak for division titles. It's crazy, but definitely a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. I was going to put his pressure meter at a 7. Because I do think that there is legitimate pressure for him to win a playoff game. I do think some of that subsides if he does win a playoff game. However, if they lose again, first, second round, and, or first round, because depending on the record, they could be a real good team this year. But let's say they lose in their first playoff game, I think that pressure just intensifies for them. Next, we're going to go to Russell Wilson, who I must admit, I was completely shocked that Russell Wilson still had a job. I was thrown off that the Giants even offered this man a contract, especially with the way he played down the stretch at Pittsburgh. I mean, if anything's indicative of how bad you played at quarterback, the team that you literally signed with the year prior did not offer you a new contract going into the season. And think about it. You heard Mike Tomlin talk that pole position bullshit. You heard him talk about how, Russell was going to be the starter, regardless of injury. And look how that played out. You had a quarterback in Justin Fields who was 4-2. You had him in position. He was winning. And then you did what? You did the unthinkable. You put the old man in who was already coming off an injury. He played well against, let's be honest, you won a lucky game against Baltimore. You beat Cincinnati early in the year when they hadn't figured it out. You beat some bad teams. And then, of course, that last stretch of the season where you played the top teams in the NFL, you were a dumpster fire. So that being said, I would have to put Russell Wilson's pressure at a 10, strictly because the horrible end that he had in Pittsburgh, that was very indicative. His career is close to being over. And let's be honest, this is it. Jackson Dart was just drafted out of Ole Miss with the 24th pick in the draft. I want to say it was 24th pick. Don't quote me on that, but I know it was in the mid to late 20s. Point being, he was drafted in the first round. I truly believe, and keep in mind, Jameis Winston is right behind him. So I don't think Russell Wilson's going to have a long leash. I don't think he's going to be allowed to turn the ball over frequently, and they're going to allow him to pump those bullshit cliches out, and that's going to keep him the starting job. I just really honestly believe he has a stretch of bad games. It's over for him. So I would definitely put his pressure at a 10. Make no mistake, he has competition. He didn't play well last year, and ultimately, he just sounds like a politician when he goes out there. I don't really believe any fan in the New York area really has faith that he's going to be good. Next, we're going to go to his counterpart from Pittsburgh last year, former teammate, I should say. That'd be Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, does this feel like, and I don't know, maybe I'm just the one that feels this way. Does this feel like that this is the first time Justin Fields is going to have a legitimate shot to actually, start and actually keep a job and potentially really win a spot? I know in Chicago, they say, well, he was a starter there. The offensive coordinators were shit. I mean, at Eberflus, it was clear as day. And it's funny because they didn't feel Justin Fields was capable. But the moment Caleb Williams came in there and he was playing well through the bullshit and trying to, circumvent the shit that was going on, clearly with the coaching inadequacies and lack of coaching and incompetence in that area. I don't understand how anyone could blame Justin Fields for the quarterback play that he had in Chicago. He definitely wore some culpability because he didn't develop, but I think coaching is a major part of that. That being said, I would say his pressure meter is at an 8, though. Now, why do I say that Justin Fields' pressure is at an 8? Because this is it for him, too. Like I said, he finally has a fair shot to be the guy, but pressure, it either creates diamonds or it bursts. It causes you to burst. He's at a situation where, let's be honest, Caleb's, got the job in Chicago. Aaron Rodgers is there for a year. You probably would have liked to have been back in Pittsburgh because, they were on their bullshit trying to lowball you. But ultimately, if Justin Fields had stayed in Pittsburgh, I think, he'd be the starting quarterback there. But this is really the best shot he's had in a long while. He's got a decent receiving core. Now, granted, he had DJ Moore and Cole Kmet in Chicago. But I would ultimately feel like, with the offensive line play, the coaching wasn't really in his favor to really succeed. They used his running ability a lot, but didn't really allow him to grow as a passer. I would, throw that out there. But with that being said, his pressure's at an 8 because you can't bullshit yourself. If he does not rise to the occasion, if he does not do what is required of him this year, he is going to be going. He will be listed as that guy that's a perennial backup. He'll consistently get jobs as, 1-year deals or fill-in deals, but he'll never, ever really grow and develop into the guy that he was once drafted and thought to be. So really pulling for Justin Fields this year, especially with the Jets, because they need him. I mean, they need a quarterback badly, but I'd be bullshitting myself if I said the pressure wasn't on him. Next, we're going to go to the new quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that'd be Aaron Rodgers, who just signed his deal Friday, 1-year, $10 million deal. Nonetheless, I would put Aaron Rodgers' pressure at a 9. His pressure is going to rise incredibly, strictly because he's being brought in to be the savior. He had a shaky season last year with the Jets. He started off horribly, end of the year, played pretty well. That being said, it was a situation where, though his arm didn't fail him, I do feel that the team around him, because of coaching, front office, management, whatever, it just didn't really work. And he didn't really play up to snuff. So that being said, the offseason chaos that's left the fan base in Pittsburgh with them asking questions, the team clearly wasn't in the dark. They clearly knew what was going on, but they allowed the fan base to be in the dark. Not end of the world shit, but we have to be completely honest with ourselves. If he does not get them to a playoff, and let alone win a playoff game, it's a failure. It's a failure. Mike Tomlin knows the pressure is on. The Steelers, Omar Khan and even the Rooney family, they know this is a make or break year. Mike Tomlin has gotten a shitload of credit for being 500 at his worst and having his team in the playoffs with the likes of Mason Rudolph and the Duck Hodges and, the corpse known as Ben Roethlisberger. He's done a lot of amazing things. Now it's time to win. And I'll be honest with you, having Aaron Rodgers there, it gives people that inclination that you're going to win, but we must pay attention to what happened last year. That front office is not even close to what Pittsburgh is, like as far as structure and stability. However, would you argue that the Jets have more talent than the Pittsburgh Steelers? I mean, defensively, I think they're better than the Steelers. So I know that didn't play out that way in a regular season game last year, a game in which Justin Fields, I want to say Russell Wilson got in too, but both of them played in that game, which is ironic. But yeah, I just feel like the pressure's at a 9 for Aaron Rodgers this year. He definitely has to play at a high level. And if he doesn't, that really should be it for him. Next, we're going to go to his former teammate in Green Bay, Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love, I must preface this. He's kind of like in the middle for me on this list. And the reason why is because he had a very good year as a starting quarterback. He played through a lot of injuries last year. And I think the injuries limited him and forced him to, a lot of times to make bad decisions. Now, he already is a little crazy, a little haywire, a little risque with the football. However, I think when you're injured and you're trying to will your team to victory, you tend to make very, very dumb decisions at times. We've seen all quarterbacks do it, so no quarterback is adverse to it. However, I would put his pressure meter at a 6. Now, here's why I put it at a 6. Look at the division. The division's gotten better. Look at the conference. The conference has gotten better. The injuries did lead to a lot of inconsistent play for him last year, but this has to be looked at as a major season for them because they just gave him the contract not even a season ago. They really feel like that he's that guy. I feel like he's a great quarterback for them, and I think he's a good player, period. But being said, you're playing against Minnesota, you're playing against Chicago, you're playing against Detroit. Now, as everything is on paper right now, all those teams are, the Packers losing to a lot of those teams. You would think, okay, well, the Packers will probably be third, in that spot, Bears being fourth. I would argue the Lions are more likely to take a step back this year. So it's going to be very, I would say, imperative for the Packers to have a good start to the season. Try not to get injured. I mean, injuries are part of the game, but try to get through the first half of the season healthy, string up some wins, because I really feel like for Jordan Love's confidence, throwing a lot of accurate passes, not seeing the ball turn over a lot, that's going to help build his confidence. It's very similar to what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. I feel the Packers need to do with Jordan Love. 25 to 30 attempts, run the ball more. And in the games where you need him to throw, call the plays that he can easily execute. And then as you're going to have to take some risks, and then when you need to take the risk, this kid's got the arm. He's got the arm talent to do it. He's a special player. But, again, division, conference, expectations are going to be high for them this year. And I do expect them to be a very good team. They were a good team last year, so pressure's going to be on them. But I only have it at a 6 as of right now. Next, we're going to go all the way to Arizona, and we're going to talk about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray also, I would place his pressure meter at a 6 as well. And the reason why is because I really feel like last year, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals they knew they had James Conner. They knew they had Marvin Harrison Jr., but he was still trying to grow into the role. We all know it's from a lot of wide receivers that have played the position that have quoted on this, Chris Carter being the one that comes to my mind. Wide receiver position is very hard to play your first year or two in the league. You're trying to learn the position, you're trying to learn the routes, you're trying to learn coverages, you're trying to learn how guys attack you differently. It's a lot of different things that go into play. That being said, you have Trey McBride, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., you have James Conner. I feel like the offensive line has gotten better. They've gotten them some weapons this year. I really feel like the Cardinals this year are a sleeper team that teams are kind of like not really talking about or thinking about. But it is imperative for Kyler Murray to stay healthy. Now, he's had a good offseason so far. He looks focused. He looks in shape. I mean, even Marvin Harrison Jr., I reported on that previous episode how jacked he looks going into the offseason. But make no mistake about it, he has to stay healthy for this team to stay afloat. They cannot go where they want to go without Kyler Murray. So I would put his pressure at a 6. However, I do feel this year, depending on where we get in the season, if things aren't looking right, I could easily see that pressure rising to an 8 or a 9. So we're going to leave it at a 6 for now, but we shall see as things play out. Going further, we're going to go to Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. Wow. Real simple for me. Tua's pressure meter is at an 8. It's unfortunate with his whole concussion situation. Tua has dealt with a ton of concussions in his career at this point. He has not really stayed healthy. You have to really ask yourself other question too that kind of doesn't, get mentioned a lot when you mention the concussions. Can he win big games? He's lost a lot of big games on the road and at home late in the season. Just not good. Not good. Very accurate. Throws for very efficient numbers. The Mike McDaniel offense suits him perfectly. However, this team is probably not even going to make the playoffs this year. They lost more talent in the offseason. What the hell is going on with the Jalen Ramsey situation? Are they trading Jonnu Smith? It's just a lot of influx. It seems like there's a lot of veterans that are trying to leave the sinking ship. They do have some pieces there, obviously, with Chop Robinson. They have some guys in the fold, but I just feel like as far as Tua is concerned, pressure is at an 8. You have to win some big games this year, and you damn sure got to get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. Because, in all honesty, Chris Greer, he tied himself to you. You may not get cut first, but he damn sure is going to get fired if this season plays out the way I think it will. So, definitely the pressure is at an 8 for Tua. Next, we're going to slide west and go to Dallas and check on the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, whose pressure meter I put at a 7.5. Now, I'm being a little generous with Dak, and I'm not even talking about my Eagles fandom. I'm just being honest, being impartial in this. I placed him at a 7.5 strictly because the offense is all on him. I mean, I know Brian Schottenheimer has coached for a long time in this league. Please keep this in mind, guys. Please keep this in mind. His name was on not a damn waiver wire as far as coaching hires. There was no rumors. You could check a bunch of different sources on this. I'll leave links in the description so you can read yourself. There was no one looking for Brian Schottenheimer this offseason. The Cowboys knew what they were doing. They were being cheap. It came down to Kellen Moore, Brian Schottenheimer. They made the choice to go with Schottenheimer because it was cheaper, and continuity with Dak Prescott. And I believe some of that is true. However, he's coming off a crazy-ass hamstring injury where he just now is getting cleared to resume football activities, fully. He has not been healthy for the past couple of years, guys. And you're telling me that you just made a big trade for George Pickens. You got him in the fold now. And if Dak gets injured, you got Joe Milton back there? Let's be honest, y'all. If Joe Milton plays even half as good as people thought he was in New England, we might have a question in a year or two. Is Dak Prescott still going to be a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? Now, I'm not saying off the rip that Joe Milton is more talented than Dak. I'm not saying that Joe Milton, at this point is better than Dak Prescott. But there is one thing that he is better than Dak is at this point, and it's availability. And the pressure, like I said, is at 7.5. Defense, we really don't know what the hell is going on there. I mean, everybody's talking about the Micah contract situation, but defensively, you don't have Trayvon Diggs back yet. I mean, you got DeRon Bland back, but, he was coming off an injury-riddled season last year. Didn't only played half the year. You're hoping a lot of these guys can just stay healthy, because if you can stay afloat, you're a fringe playoff team at the worst. So it's one of those things where, honestly, yeah, the pressure's at a 7.5 for Dak Prescott. If they in any way, shape, or form falter or he gets injured, this team is screwed. And let's see here, rounding up the list, last but not least, Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold, this is kind of crazy because you would think a guy who just got a major contract from an NFL team like the Seattle Seahawks, who just got rid of their quarterback, were looking for a guy to bring into the fold to kind of really help, push the offense further. I just think it's kind of crazy, but I must admit, his pressure is at a 6. Now, I think it's at a 6 right now, and I'm saying right now because it can go up higher. I'm saying it's at a 6 now because when you have your coach in camp answering questions about you turning the ball over in red zone drills, when practice is really the time of year when, in this time of year, you should be making mistakes because ultimately you're trying different things and you're trying to be efficient. You're trying to show the things that you worked on and see what you can and can't do going into camp. That being said, though, when you have this guy already answering questions like this puts him back in that New York Jets, Carolina Panthers mindset. And I'll digress a bit further by saying it's at a point now where I think it could be potentially in his head at some point during the season. I think he can have a year where he plays very well. He has some weapons around him, but he also has that other lingering question, which is a vicious thing to say, but we have to be honest. Was last year a fluke? I mean, he was in a Kevin O'Connell offense, The Vikings do have weapons. I mean, clearly the wide receiving core is one of the best in the NFL. Aaron Jones is no scrub at running back. Their offensive line is okay, not great. So him winning as many games as he did last year and then flaming out in the playoffs, and then, you're already being asked questions about your performance in a practice, you're kind of trying to fend off that, steam and fire already, I would have to put the pressure at the 6, and it could potentially go higher, especially depending on how he plays towards the end of the season. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I appreciate you guys and love you for always watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.